Love makes me treat you the way that I do. Gee, baby, ain't I good to you? There's nothing too good for a girl that's so true. Gee, baby, ain't I good to you? I bought you a fur coat for Christmas, a diamond ring, a Cadillac car, and everything. Love makes me treat you the way that I do. Gee, baby, ain't I good to you? Okay, so let's have a look at Monday's course, or lessons, excuse me, and Monday deals with intervals. And so let's just take a quick look at the introduction. Here you can see we're talking about two pitches, basically. So just take a gander here. See, there's two pitches there, two pitches there, two pitches there. So essentially, it gives you a great definition. In the most generic sense, intervals measure distances between sounds. More specifically, an interval may be defined as the distance between two pitches, represented by letter names. So these two pitches may be played simultaneously or consecutively. If they are played simultaneously, the result is a harmonic interval. So think of the word harmony. If they're played consecutively, one after the other, it's called a melodic interval. So if you think about a melody, obviously all the notes aren't sounding at the same time in a melody, they're sounding consecutively. So that's where the word melodic comes from. So a thorough knowledge of intervals is a fundamental aspect of understanding the Western system of tonal music. So you've got some options here, and they're going to let you listen to harmonic intervals, or a harmonic interval first. So let's give this a listen. So that's just showing you what it sounds like. There's a low note and a high note, right? Here's the low note, and here's the high note, and then they're just sounding together. Now then we have something called melodic intervals, where they're played one after the other. So let's listen to these. Right? And so it's just the same thing we did a moment ago. And that is an ascending, right, pattern, and here it is in descending. Okay, now the thing to remember here is the number of the interval. If we count from the bottom to the top, 1 for the line, right, for C, 2 for D, 3 for E, 4 for F, and 5 for G. So this would be the interval of a fifth. Okay, now it's asking you, or telling you, the next section will talk about something called interval classification. So let's go through that. The interval's name has two components. So the interval size, that would be the number, right? And then there's something called the interval quality that we're going to learn. And so we're going to talk about this. It says a complete interval analysis must include both numeric size and quality. Now that's a big fancy definition. All they're just simply telling you is that intervals have qualities or names, and they have numbers. Okay, so you're going to hear words like perfect and diminished, augmented, major, minor. So don't be alarmed at these big fancy words that are coming out, but that's what they mean. The interval size has to do with the number, right? The distance between the two pitches. So for example, from this bottom note to the top note, right, is a third. F, G, A, 1, 2, 3. And it has a distinctive sound. Same as with this. Here's another third. C, D, C to D to E, right? and another third. G, A would be in the space, and B on the line. And these types of intervals actually sound alike. They sound alike because they're equal distance apart from the bottom note to the top note. A third, and a third. I'll make mention here that the bottom note in each of these cases is referred to as a root. Interval quality tells us the character or the color of the interval. And remember, I said a moment ago, it's also the name that we might call the interval. You have various interval qualities, and the quality of interval is dictated by the number of semitones that the interval contains. Now, we're not going to be counting semitones, okay? It says to determine the quality of the intervals. Be thankful for that. However, you will learn to do this by placing the interval in the context of a major scale, okay? And you're going to figure out how to do this. Don't be alarmed. It's going to be easy. In the meantime, listen to the three intervals below, and all of them are fifths, right? Because they all are 5 letter names apart. C, D, E, F, G, right? Each one of these is the same. But notice how the top note in each case is altered, right? Here it's altered, and here it's altered, here it's left alone. So they're going to sound different. Let's play the middle one first, okay? That has a distinctive sound. That's the sound of a fifth. Now, in music theory speak, in analytical speak, and you're going to learn these terms, this particular interval is referred to as a perfect interval. Notice it has not been altered. This interval, the top note, has been altered. It's been lowered by that flat symbol. There's the bottom note. There's the top note. Let's listen to the two tones played together. Yeah. Compare it to this one. Hear the difference? And then this one's going to sound altered too because of the sharp symbol. Yeah. Here's the perfect. Now this one. Yeah, little changes here and there. And if you were just to play the top notes, there's the G, G flat, half step down, right? G sharp, half step up. Well, here's the idea. It says, according to quality, intervals are classified as perfect, major, minor, augmented, or diminished. And so with practice, you're going to be able to determine these just by looking at them. You won't even have to hear them, but you'll be able to look at them and say, hey, that top note has been altered, so this has got to be this type of interval. So let's think about these terms, perfect, right, and augmented or diminished. Because the perfect intervals, ladies and gentlemen, can't be major or minor, ever, not in a million years. They can only be perfect, augmented, or diminished. Now we're going to learn more about this as we go along, but let's take this first set of intervals here. This middle one is called perfect. Notice no alterations. This interval has been altered. How? Well, it's been made smaller. That G has been lowered. So, well, what word, perfect, augmented, or diminished, fits with smaller? Diminished, right? This last interval here has been raised by that G sharp. Well, if you raise something, you make it bigger. So that one has been augmented. So it says before going into the details of interval quality identification, let's look some more at how to easily identify the numeric size of intervals. Okay, so we go on to the next page, and it's giving us some tools that we can use. It says here, it is easier to calculate interval size in reference to the staff than the keyboard because each line and space in the staff represents a letter name, and that makes sense. Interval size may be calculated in one of 3 ways. You can count every letter name in the interval, including both the start and the end pitches. You can count every staff line and space from the bottom to the top note of the interval, including both pitches in your calculation. Look at the size of the interval on the staff and quickly determine whether or not it contains a combination of lines and spaces. So whichever method you use, count each letter name only once. Count from the bottom to the top. Remember that. Bottom to top. Include the first and last letter names in the interval. So if when you start with the bottom note, you're going to count that as 1 until you count to the top. So here we go. If we start with this one as 1, then we've got the space in between these two notes. That would be 2, and then the top one would be 3. So this is a third. And here it's showing you. Okay, so that's how you can calculate the numeric size of an interval. Now, here, C all the way up to B. Now, we can count these lines and spaces, but let's look down here at this idea. There is an interval that has been played for us. Okay, so let's listen to it. Let's look at this diagram that says show me, and it's showing you all the notes in between, both on the piano keyboard and on the musical staff. I'm sorry if I'm scratching my nose quite a bit. I just got done petting one of my cats, and it's making me itch. We have 2 cats. I'll show them to you at some point, and they are driving me crazy, driving the entire family crazy. In fact, one of them, if he doesn't behave himself, is going to learn how to fly. Yeah, that'll be fun, won't it? Okay, so accidentals and interval numeric size. We'll see there's an idea too here. It says accidentals, sharp, flat, double sharp, double flat, don't affect interval numeric size. This is very important to remember, folks. These 2 sets of intervals are both thirds because they both bear the same letter distance, right? C, D, E. C, D, E. I'm not including the sharps in the alphabet, but you could simply say C sharp, D, E sharp. But the 2 intervals are also going to have a very similar quality sound to them because they're both major intervals. Their qualities are both major. Okay, moving right along, we have rules to identify the size of an interval. The notes, look at this little rule in the red box here, the notes of even-numbered intervals are always placed from space to line or line to space. So a second or a fourth, right, or a sixth, look at this, line to space, space to line, line to space. This is always true. The notes of odd-numbered intervals, 3, 5, 7, they're always going to be from either a line to a line or a space to a space, right? Look here. Here's line to line. That's a third. Here's a fifth, space to space. Here's a seventh, line to line. This will be something that you can count on every single time. Notice that we haven't talked about 2 intervals yet, the unison and the octave. And by the way, all of these intervals that are listed here are called harmonic intervals, right? Because they're all meant to be played at the same time. But notice here, they're comparing all of these intervals, right, to these 8 tones listed above. These bottom 8 tones would be considered a common tone to the rest of these intervals. So I'm going to let you play with this, but it says to experiment with the following harmonic intervals starting on middle C by clicking on the speaker or on the individual notes. And notice how starting with C on a line as the bottom note, the even-numbered intervals go from line to space on the staff, and the odd numbers go from line to line. This is pretty easy to look at. You can see this. I'll let you play with these. Okay, and then when we go on, you have the quiz for the intervals, and I'm going to let you take that. But just notice it says this quiz will help you prepare for the midterm exam. Now, I'm not sure why it says that, as quizzes, the interval should not be on the midterm. So I'm going to investigate that, but I wanted you to be aware it does say that. So don't don't worry about it. We'll work around it, but we will be progressing on to Tuesday's lessons, which is again talking about interval qualities. Okay, so we'll see you soon. Thanks.
I'm a sentimental sap, that's all. What's the use of trying not to fall? I have no will, you've made your kill, 'cause you